moving on. Let's talk about some of the limitations to our free will. Some of these are pretty straightforward. It's like natural law, right? You can't
jump to space.
Unless you're Superman or Thor,
right?
They could cheat physics all day long, right?
We're not cheating it.
Math, you can't get around math. 2 + 2 is always equal to 2. 4. Wow.
Well, no,
that's
the inside.
The inside joke, man. You can't cheat physics. So we were talking offline earlier, right? There's this event. I used to do events, right, for a living. I used to set up commercial events and everything. Yeah, it's funny, right?
Get my drink.
I used to set up events, corporate events for hotels and meetings and stuff like that, right? And I was doing this event at the Hilton Lincoln Center here in Dallas, right, in the heart of Dallas. And the stage decks, they were gray, right? And the woman who was really in charge of getting everything set up for this corporation that will not name, that I don't remember who it was, but it doesn't matter. But she wanted them to be black. Right.
Is her name Karen?
She wanted them to be black. I don't know why, but she would not let go of that. And other hotels stuff, they have black stages. That's not a problem. Like the Gaylord Texan, for instance, they have black stages, right? And anyways, this hotel only had gray stages. So she asked, like, is it possible for them to have black stages? I'm like, okay, well, that probably shouldn't be a problem. Let me call up banquets, and see if they got any black stages, right? So I call up banquets. Guy comes down, and he promptly throws me under the bus. He's like, no, we don't really have black stages. We only have gray. But I know this guy's company over here, they have black carpet and stuff like that. I'm like, bro, we don't sell carpet. That's not our forte. We have a vendor we go through, right? But we don't. That's not in our portfolio stuff. We don't. Anyways, so I told her about our vendor and told her a quote and stuff like that. She wasn't having it. She didn't like the prices, all right? So then she started coming up with ideas. You can almost see the wheels turning in her head. Right? She started coming up with ideas like, how can I make this stage black? That's not part of the story. She started coming up with ideas of how can we make the stage black. And, back behind the stage was the black drape, right? And she's asking, like, well, is there any way we could take this drape down and, or have some other drape and put it on the stage and make it black? I'm like, ma'am, there's not enough tape in the world.
Trip hazard.
Yes, there's not enough tape in the world to make this safe. Like, you're going to trip. Y'all got heels, stuff like that. Like, it's not going to happen, And then, without missing a beat, I'm telling you, she was heart attack serious, right? She turned to me and said, without even missing a beat, without blinking, she was like, well, there's any way you can take these lights and shine it on the stage, make it dark. I had to do everything within me to control my facial muscles. And I don't think I succeeded, to be honest. Right. Because I'm like, did you just hear what you just said? Like, ma'am, you cannot cheat physics. I didn't say that to her, but in my mind I said, ma'am, I don't think that's, but like black lights don't work like that. Right. Like, I kind of got what she was getting at, like the black light, but it don't work like that. Yeah. And I'm like, man, the moral of the story is you cannot cheat physics. But anyways, we digress. Another limitation. Spiritual law, right? And we talked about another episode about the whole logical argument about moral absolutes, right? You can't be like, oh, well, there's no such thing as moral absolutes, but then in the same breath be like, back to blue. Like, you can't say there's moral relativism, yet you believe in cops. Why? Why would you believe in cops if everything is moral relativism? So if I break into your house and steal your TV, you're gonna call the cops? Why?
They say you're wrong.
I'll be like, no, like, you're wrong for calling the cops. I was able to take it from you. Right. Too bad. Poo-poo on you. Right. You had it. I wanted it. I got it. What's the big deal? Right. Why do we lock up Bernie Madoff for stealing millions of dollars? If moralities are if morality is relative.
Absolutely.
Right? No, that's a limitation of our free will. We're not allowed to go steal. See, all the things that's in the 10 Commandments, people have to think that, oh, it's all negative. Do not do this. Do not do that. Do not do this. I'm like, well, the implication is that we have the freedom to have these things.
Right.
If the idea is thou shalt not steal, the implication is you're allowed to have stuff.
Right.
And you're allowed to. There's a recourse for that if it is stolen.
Right.
The concept of justice arises out of that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And without getting too deep into theology, just backing up what you said, the moral law is important in order to confine us. Yes, we have free will, but if there was no moral law within us, then it would just be chaos.
Yeah.
And it would be a Noah situation where God's like, they just every thought is evil.
It's anarchy.
They're out of there. I'm flooding it.
By the way, nothing new under the sun. People think that the all stuff now is like we're so smart. We invented these things. I mean, nothing new under the sun.
Yep.
Ain't nothing new.
Yep.
Another aspect of spiritual limitations is our own bodies, right?
Yep.
So here's what Paul says.
Check out what old Paul says.
in Romans 7:15 through 25. And I like the New Living Translation for this because it just kind of makes it a little more clear.
Right.
'Cause a lot of times it can get really like wordy in how he's saying some things, right? But here's what he says. I don't really, and I quote, I don't really understand myself for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know that what I am doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. So I am not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. Mm-hmm. And I know that nothing good lives in me. That is, in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyways. But if I do what I don't want to do, am I not really the one doing wrong? It is sin living in me that does it. I have discovered this principle in life, that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there is another power within me that is at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to the sin that is still within me. Oh, what a miserable person I am. Who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death? Thank God. The answer is in Jesus Christ, our Lord. So you see how it is? In my mind, I really want to obey God's law, but because of the limitation of my sinful nature, I am a slave to sin. All right.
It's a good text. He's laying out the battle that there's another text. He says, sin wages war against my soul.
Yeah.
And so it's a true battle with the sin that is in him, and that we have free will, yet we still have to battle with sin even as a believer. Sin is within us, and so it does limit us from being, it limited Paul from truly, of course, Paul would want to be sinless, right? Mm-hmm. All believers desire to be sinless. Ultimately, we will be. We see that in the end. He says, I can recall the ESV or the King James, which I did like that version, but he says, "Oh, wretched man that I am, who can deliver me from this body of sin?" And then he's thanking God for Jesus because he understands that one day he will come and get us and we will get a new body and we'll be sinless. Yep. But as of right now, we have the limitation of dealing with sin.
Yep. So there it is. And because of that, we get into consequences, right? Mm. So some of our natural consequences is, pretty straightforward. Again, we talk about natural stuff because our default nature before we come to Christ is natural, right? So it's a natural framework. And we have natural consequences to some of our free will, You have gain, you have loss, right? So say, for example, you invest your money well. You're gonna do all right. For the most part, until the stock market drops, and then you suffer loss. Right? It's some things you can't control. But it all depends on you. Still take on that risk.
I'm reminded of Proverbs where it talks about the diligent. And it also talks about the slothful, and there's free will in that. Get up and go and work hard, and you will have abundance, right? Mm-hmm. But the individual that's slothful and making excuses will be put to forced labor, or they'll be without when it comes time.
I remember that really woke me up when I first saw that in Proverbs. It's there's like 3 different ones. They'll kind of come to mind at the same time. Mm-hmm. But I think the one that stands out the most is like a little more sleep, a little more slumber, a little more folding of the hands, mm-hmm. and then poverty will strike you like an armed robber.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, wow.
Yep.
Woke me up.
Oh yeah. So yeah, just with the free will, it can affect your gain and loss, mm-hmm. life and death.
Yeah, I mean, if you chose to drive a truck with a high center of gravity over a 60-degree curve at 90 miles an hour, you're going to suffer the consequences.
I have a story. Physics. There was I guess you can call him a friend. We were cool in school, and I remember when I first got saved, I was trying to invite him to do Bible study with me. I want to share the word with him. I was talking to him. He worked at Subway, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I need to do that." And he was gang affiliated, and I remember talking to him. I was like, dude, you don't have to do that. His mom was a gang member formerly, but she wasn't anymore. I said, you got a mom that love you. You got a sister. You in college. You don't have to do that. I'm like, come to this Bible study, man. Let's talk about it. He's like, okay, I'm gonna come. A couple months later, he ends up getting shot dead at a party. He was at a party, and
that's terrible.
They started let me everybody ain't gonna know what I'm talking about. They were throwing up gang signs, and they were rival gang members, and they ended up getting into a shootout, and he was killed. So again, his free will, his choice could have been, let me go to the Bible study with Jason, let me hear about what he's talking about, potentially becoming saved. He doesn't end up in a situation where he's at a party and shot dead at 22. He's gone. So much life to live, man.
Yep. I remember at 22, I was still overseas in Japan. I was a watch supervisor, and I'm not gonna get into that right now, but it was, man, I was living my best life.
Your best life now?
But no, it was a good time though. And I think back about it. It was a lot of fond memories. I was in leadership. I was flowing in my element. I knew who I was at that point of time in my life, and this is pre-Christ, right? This is before I became a Christian. Mm-hmm. And I knew who I was, and I was moving up in the ranks because I was good at my job. I was good at my job because I loved my job. My job gave me that sense of identity and purpose, and you couldn't tell me nothing at that point, And man, but to see someone's life end because of consequences that could have been avoided, right? Because all you had to do was choose differently. Mm-hmm. Right, use your own free will to choose differently. All right,
Man, that one touches me. I'm sitting here right now. That one touches me.
Yeah, it touches me, man.
Yeah.
And then, last but not least, talk about some spiritual consequences. Mm-hmm. And you've a lot of people heard this from Christians. About you gotta go to hell, blah blah blah, whatever. But look, we've mentioned before in prior episodes, like we're not here with that kind of a message, that tone of a message. Right. We're not going to shy away from the fact that there is a hell, and that unfortunately some, good-meaning people, some well-intentioned, outwardly good people would probably end up there, right? So we're not going to shy away from that fact. But at the same time, we're not going to come at you with the kind of tone that's where you're going, and that's the end of the story.
Right.
I'm like, as long as there's breath in your lungs, there is hope for redemption. And only God knows. You can be on your deathbed, and you come to realization, you know what, I've been wrong all my life. What they've been saying is right. And if they're saying it's right, and I don't want to die and be tortured for the rest of eternity, right? Mm-hmm. So,
as Christ said, he did not come to condemn the world. He came to save it. We really condemn ourselves when we choose not to accept him. So that's an eternal spiritual consequence.
Yeah.
For believers, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, or hold on, 1 Corinthians chapter 3. It talks about our crown, our rewards anyway, the reward system, and how if it's not, basically what it's saying is if what the work you did wasn't really for the Lord, then you can be well intended and you can have the right mind, like this is what we're gonna do, right? It's gonna be for the Lord, and it wasn't for him, then you're gonna suffer loss.
Yeah.
You know,
he uses an analogy of like some stuff like gold, right? It'll be purified through fire, right? And other stuff, you know, will pass through the fire like sticks and straw, it'll burn up and you'll suffer loss, but you'll still have your life.
Exactly.
Right? You know, for the believers.
Right.
So it's kind of like what Jesus said, like, you know, though, like, it's good that you obey the commandments, but even if you don't obey the commandments, you'll be called the least in heaven.
Right.
All right.
Right. It's interesting. I was thinking about that literally yesterday, I believe. If it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before. And I was like, I think we take that lightly. As a side note, anyway, I think we take that lightly. If we can suffer loss and there are rewards, then it must be important, you know, because most people's mindset is, I just want to get to heaven. No, I want them rewards. You know what I'm saying? You know? What am I missing out on?
Heaven is, well, I mean, Jesus is the main target.
Right.
Heaven is the benefit package.
Right.
You know, and then the reward, stuff like that. Like, we don't know exactly what, and the Bible doesn't really tell us exactly what we'll be doing in heaven, and for good reason, you know, because we shouldn't be so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good, right? You know, but it clearly shows that there's some sort of hierarchy, you know, in heaven, because you're gonna have the 24 elders. They're still there, you know. Some of us, maybe, I don't think all of us, but I think some of us will be judging angels, right, and stuff like that. So I mean, it's
the disciples' names on the in the city, stones. So absolutely.
There's, and then also like the crowns you earn and stuff like that. So it tells you that there's some sort of hierarchy. There can be some people with more crowns than others, some people with no crowns, right? So it tells me that there's some sort of hierarchy there. You know, what it actually all means, you know, I'll just leave that alone. I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah, I'm trying to have all the badges.
Be juggling my crowns, you know. You know. But that's really it on free will. You know, we're gonna come back at you later about God's sovereignty in a different episode. And man, because it's so much there and so rich and a lot to go there. And again, we're not trying to have arguments with people. We're not trying to have debates. Because have you ever heard of anyone being saved from debate?
No.
Like, man, I watched a debate and I decided to put my life in Christ. I never heard of it. Never heard of it.
No.
It may exist, but it's not the norm.
It's not the norm. You know? I was saved in a crack house. That's not the norm. Just because it happened doesn't make it the norm. But please check out our videos. Yes. Watch them. Tune in. We got some good content. We're talking about some good stuff. And if you know us personally, then hit us up and we can talk about these things. Yes.
Hit us up on the comments. Hit the like. Hit the subscribe. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcast, whether it be Apple, Spotify, Amazon. We're everywhere. You can find us. You know, you're gonna look for that dove, look for that X, look for that flag, and then you'll find out where we stand on some of these issues.
Yes, and if you see pigeons, don't park under a tree.
All right, it's your host Ray Tucker
and Jay Jones.
We are signing off.